Groundandpound-TV here at the FIBO in Germany, and on my right you see the man they call Stitch, Jacob Duran, the best cutman in the business, they always tell me. Yeah, you're here for the hand wrapping World Cup. What do you think about it so far? And by the way, how did it all come together? How did you hear about it? And when was the point where you thought, I'll do it?
Well, yeah, you know, and thanks for having me here, by the way. But, you know, the International Cutman Association, this is the first year that they put on a hand wrapping championship worldwide. Have some of the greatest cutmen throughout the world that came in, and we evaluated their skills by the way they wrap hands. But more importantly, we're here to really let the public know, let the fans know, let the fighters know, let the trainers know that, you know, we're making a difference in the game as cutmen. And I think I take a lot of pride in being in the forefront, saying I help make this game better. But Federico Cartazzoni from Italy is the one that had the brainchild of putting this union, well, this association together. And Michael Schmidt here from Germany has done a tremendous job in bringing all of us together, organizing everything, and then making this program work. So I'm real honored to have been here. You know, I just finished the results, and nobody knows. I'll let you know. I'll give you the exclusive right. But the champion for the hand wrapping contest was Adam Gigley from England. He works in the UFC with me, and he did a tremendous job. Federico Cartazzoni, the president, came in second, and then you have Tommy McCormick from Ireland that came in third. So you know, and then Michael Schmidt did a great job. He came in fourth, and so you know, I'm really honored to be here in Germany. It's like my second home, and you know, to come here and represent the International Cutman Association is, for me, it's a big pleasure.
Yeah, a lot of good names that you just told me, and as we can see, they are on top, and we know them because of that. Yeah, what do you think about the talent in general? I mean, have you seen a little bit talent in Germany so far? Could you compare it to the US maybe, like Europe and US? Is there some yes, some big difference, or is it like everywhere else?
For cutmen,
for cutmen,
yeah. You know what, and that I'm so proud of everybody that participated, because the ones that participated, there was a difference of 5 points or 10 points to really who was going to win, who was going to come in first, second, and third. But the representatives from Germany did a tremendous job, tremendous job, and I think, you know, Germany should be proud for the efforts that these guys came in. And you know, there's a lot of young guys, but we're all on the same page. And you know, the only way that you're going to get better is through experience and this type of recognition that Ground and Pound has given us.
And how important do you think it is to have really trained cutmen? Because we see them on smaller shows, some guys that aren't really experienced, and that can terribly go wrong sometimes for fighters. How important is that?
Well, listen, I've made a lot of money for a lot of fighters. I've saved a lot of fighters' careers doing what I do, and I think it's extremely important for these new promotions that are coming up. And you know, I hear a lot of stories where you know, some promotions don't have cutmen. These guys get cut, and it's not fair to them. It's not fair to the fans. You know, we got to take care of these guys. I was talking to this guy from the Netherlands that is a promoter, and he doesn't have cutmen. So I spoke to him, and there's a representative, Stefan, from Holland, and the promoter has agreed to start using cutmen in their show. So I think, you know, what's happened here in FIBO and what we've accomplished, I think awareness is really the big thing. For the public and the promoters and the fighters, but for us, it's the experience factor and the brotherhood that we're putting together.
I think a question everyone from the outside asks is, how does it work for cutmen? I mean, do they get signed from fighters or from the organization, or is there an athletic commission, or how do you work with fighters, so to speak, for events?
Well, it's two out of those three that you mentioned. You know, when it comes to you know, the fighter, they have a choice of having their own cutman. You know, the UFC, they put the expense to hire professional cutmen like myself to come in and take care of the people. Some of the promotions now are starting to realize realize that it's a good investment for them. If they want to, have a good show, take care of their fighters, give the fans that one more round, it's a small investment to have Cutman there and take care of them. So in that aspect, I think we're making a difference, brother.
Talking about the one more round, are there some fights where you think maybe if I could have 10 more seconds, 20 more seconds, I could save this guy for letting him fight one more round? Does it happen often?
Well, I've been real fortunate. I've been, I've been able to do, sometimes people call it magic, within 50, 55 seconds.
You get it in time.
Yeah. So, I like to say I've changed careers, which is good. But yeah, that's what makes a Cutman a lot different than, let's say, a doctor. Some promotions will use doctors, but if you don't understand the game of mixed martial arts or the game of boxing or even the fighters, then that's a big difference. A doctor has a long time to work on a patient. We got 50 to 55 seconds to really do wonders and change a guy's career. There's many times when the father or the mother or the wife comes up to me and they thank me for taking care of their son or their husband.
I guess, really.
And that's what we're bringing to the table. And this is the first year that we've been together for FIBO and the International Cutman Association. It's going to make history in itself.
That sounds good. You just mentioned doctors. Doctors in general. I mean, if you're in the ring at the moment or at the cage or whatever, you have the doctor. Do you work kind of with him? Do you talk with him in between rounds to make sure, like, let me do my work and then I can save him, so to speak?
Yeah, well, actually, I do that beyond. About 30 minutes before a fight, I'll go into the ringside where the doctors are at. I'll meet with the doctors, and for the most part, they know who I am. But the bottom line is we're there to protect the fighters, and the doctor has the final decision on whether they're going to stop a fight or not. But I let them know. I said, look, let us do what we do, and we're here to work with you. And if we realize that it's a bad cut or the fighter has a concussion, whatever the situation is, we're going to work with you in stopping that fight and saving that fighter for another day. But if we could do our magic, let us do our magic.
So you can talk to them, so to speak. They aren't like, let me do my job and you can't tell me anything.
No, absolutely. These guys, they understand when we're working that, we don't deal with egos. We're here to protect the fighters, and when you have the communications with a doctor, then there's a good relationship that, we're working together. If we make the doctor look good, he's going to make us look good, and he's going to make the fighter look good, and he's going to make the promotion look good, and then the fans will come back.
That sounds good. Speaking of cuts, I think you get this question a lot. Like, what was one of the worst cuts you've ever seen? Maybe seen, and one where you were at the scene as well.
Oh man, I've seen hundreds of them, believe it or not. But and it's funny. We're walking and we're talking about doing interviews, and people always ask that same question: What's the biggest cut? And I have to always go back to Marvin Eastman when he took that knee from Vitor Belfort. It was just a big old gash. Brock Lesnar, when he fought Cain Velasquez, had a nasty gash here. When you had that fight with Cain Velasquez with Bigfoot, he got cut up pretty good. So it's there's plenty of them. And we could sit here and we could talk about them for hours. And but the bottom line is at the end of the day, we took care of them.
Yeah, right there. I had some question in mind, but I have another one right now, so ask that first. You're into MMA, you're into boxing as well. You did some fighting, I think, or training in the past. What do you prefer, really? I mean, can you say that, like boxing or MMA, or don't you care?
Oh, no, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'll be back April the 26th. Vladimir Klitschko's fighting here in Oberhausen, and and it's great coming back for that. But as I look at it, I'm a martial artist. I started off in kickboxing, and I had my own school of kickboxing, and then the MMA world came around. But the relationship I have with these fighters in the MMA industry, because I work with all of them, I really, for the action of what these guys bring to the table, and these guys are modern day gladiators, man, I love MMA better than boxing. Not to say that, working with the Klitschkos, I mean, that's a horse of a different color, because they're the nicest guys in the world, and they're very first class all the way.
Yeah, let's stay with boxing and MMA. How does it work? I mean, do you have to work only with one fighter, or do you have many fighters per show? I guess in boxing you don't have that many. In MMA, do you have more than?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. You know, like let's say Vladimir, when he fights April the 26th here in Oberhausen, you know, I come work for him specifically, and I'm hired for that one fighter. But there's other fighters that fight within his organization that they'll ask me to work with them. So it's often where I work multiple fights. In the UFC, you know, I could be rapping you, John Jones, I could be rapping Texera at the same time, and then you guys fight each other. You know, so I'm there to give these guys whatever skills I have, and so you know, I work with so many fights. I mean, if there's 12 fights in the UFC, I'm working minimum 6 of them, and
that's a lot for a night.
Well, yeah, well, I used to work all of them, but you know, we got so busy now that the UFC has brought in more cutmen to help us out. So what I'll do is I'll work the early fights, and then I'll work the last fights, and I'll let the younger guys work the fights in the middle.
Yeah, you know so many fighters now over the years, and we can see that sometimes after the fight they hug you, they kiss you, whatever. What role do you think you play in their mind game, so to speak? Because sometimes we see you talking to them. Do you motivate them, maybe some kind of extra? Can we say that?
No, absolutely. You know, one of the skills of being a good cut man is not only wrapping a good hand, you know, working cuts, but the psychology of the game is extremely, extremely important. And you're right. You know, it's very common when a fighter will come and give me a kiss and say, "Hey, man, Stitch, I love you." I just saw Gilbert Ivel. He came up to the booth over here for the ICA, gives me a kiss and tells me he loves me. You know, and that's the kind of relationship I have. Vitaly Klitschko, when we were in Moscow, I'm saying goodbye, you know, as we're leaving apart, and he looks at me and says, "Stitch, I'm not gay, but I love you." You know, and you know, you can't buy that, man. You know, that's, to me, it's not about the money. It's I'm just so honored to be working with so many of the greatest fighters in the world in boxing and MMA.
Another question comes to mind, speaking of talking to fighters. I mean, in between rounds you see them sometimes shaking, drinking, talking to their corner, and you are in between. How do you get them to really stay stay put, so to speak, that you can work on them? Because sometimes we see them on other cutmen, like they move and then the cut is open again.
Well, you know, one fighter, that's a good question. One fighter really said it best. I think it was Mike Pyle. He said, you know, when I see Stitch walking in, I know I'm in trouble. You know, so they understand if I'm in there, I'm there to do some work, but it's that eye contact I have with them. You know, I'll direct my whole attention to them, and I'll keep them focused on me. And you know, Jose Aldo, you know, comes into the corner when I'm putting the Vaseline on, and he's jumping around like a Mexican jumping bean. Okay, I understand that. That's the adrenaline in them. So I learned how to work with that. But you know, with the fighters, it's if I'm in there, I get their attention.
So now the question that I wanted to ask before, how important do you think hygiene is? Because sometimes we see even cutmen without gloves and stuff. Does that make you crazy?
Oh no, absolutely. You know, those are things that we in the International Cutman Association, we're eliminating that, and it bugs me. It bugs me. My biggest pet peeve is for a cutman not to have gloves, and a cutman to have the swabs in his mouth or in his ear. You know, and in boxing that still exists so much, but if you notice in the UFC,
you see it all the time. Yeah,
I see it, and you notice in the UFC, I've changed that program there. No, and we all wear gloves. We all have the wrist wraps that I created, and we put the swabs there, so we keep it clean. But sanitation is an extremely important part of what we do. You know, because we're dealing with open wounds, and with, you know, it's bad enough having a cut, but then it'd be worse to have an infection.
Michael says it all the time as well in Germany. So let's talk about fighters. I mean, sometimes we see, for example, Tito Ortiz, he does his own raps. Yeah. What do you think about that? We don't see that very often. I mean, is that still happening?
No, you know, the only guys, actually Tito's the only guy I know that has wrapped his own hand, and he does a good job. And well, when we did the reality show when he was a coach,
but doesn't take that a lot of time to do it for yourself?
You know what? Sometimes guys relax doing that. Okay. You know, that's
might be it.
Absolutely, you know, that's a relax factor. But when we did the reality show when Tito was a coach, first thing I told him is, "I'm wrapping the hands, brother." You know, I said, "We'll have a contest. Whoever does a better job, will get the assignment." But I know I can do a better job than Tito. You know, but nonetheless, you know, it does. It relaxes him, and you know, every fighter has their own little different things that will make them comfortable. And, you know, Vitor Belfort said it best. He says, you know, when I see Stitch coming into the dressing room, whether he's working my corner or not, he brings that calming effect. And I think, you know, that's the relationship I want to relay to these guys, because these guys are getting ready to go to battle, brother. Frank Mir said, another quote, he said, when I see Stitch walking into the dressing room, my stomach just drops because I know it's time to fight. And during that time, you know, my job is to make them relaxed. Cain Velasquez, my job is to make him smile and give me a hug by the end of the fight. You know, so, but that's a psychology that through experience and knowing these fighters, you have to relate to them.
What you mentioned before, is there some kind of ritual for you now, how you walk with people? Is there some kind of pattern that goes on over the years?
Oh, no, absolutely. You know, there's a pattern that I have for myself. I always iron my clothes. I check my inventory, the swabs, the ice pack, the medications, the Vaseline. I go through all of that before I leave my house and make sure that I have enough for all the fighters that I have. You know, so that's a ritual. The system that I have while I'm working the actual fight, the point that I get to the dressing room, to the point that I'm finished, it's all systematic, you know, because the formula that I put together works. It works for me, and, you know, that's the information that I'm bringing to the ICA. Education is, if I give anything to this system, it's that I educate the fans, the fighters, the promoters, and obviously the cutmen.
Okay, 2-3 last questions now about your person.
And you ask good questions, brother.
Thank you. I think some people want to know, how did you get really into the business to work on cuts, to put on Vaseline on guys, so to speak? How did it all work out?
Well, you know,
or start?
Yeah, well, you know, like I say, it started back in 1974. I was in the military. I was stationed in Thailand, and I was a young kid, and I studied the Muay Thai system up there, and when I came back, I got into boxing. But then I opened up my own school of kickboxing. It was ASK, for the American School of Kickboxing. And I trained the fighters, I managed them, I promoted them, and I also learned to be a cutman. I had to, I did it all. And so, you know, but at the end of the day, I love training fighters, but God, I love being a cutman. And I studied it, and, you know, there was one cutman as I was learning that I asked him, you did a great job, and I was learning to be a cutman, and I said, look, I want to be a cutman, can you give me any advice? And he said, no, F you, man. He goes, I'm taking this to my grave, and you got to learn just like me. But that quote that he gave me right there is the reason that I'm here talking to you, because I said, you know what, I'm never going to be like that man. My job is to educate the guys, to take care of the fighters. And like I told a guy today, I said, look, you know, you as a coach teach a fighter how to fight, but nobody teaches you how to take care of your fighter. And that's what the International Cutman Association is going to be doing.
So for you worked it out over the years for yourself, or did you have kind of a teacher after a while?
Yeah.
Can you say that?
For the most part, you know, I did in boxing. Then before the UFC came around, it was only boxing, and all these old veteran cutmen thought it was a secret. Well, now that I understand the game, it's not a secret. It's all technique, and I developed the techniques that I studied films, I studied fighters, I read books on blood and coagulation and all that, and I eliminated the negatives and I put the positives together and came out with a system that works.
It really works, as we could see some minutes ago at the end wrapping the tournament. Now the last question I got, and then we'll let you go. Your nickname, Stitch, how did you get it? Who gave it to you?
Well, you know, Tommy McCormick from Ireland just asked me that question 15 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
But when I was learning to be a cutman, I had a fighter that fought, and he ended a small cut. Now that I know the cuts, that one, compared to what I've worked before, it was a very small cut. And I didn't have no medication, so I just applied direct pressure. But then I used to see these other old cutmen in boxing. They would get the tape and cut little pieces of strip, and then they would butterfly it. So I did that. And the guy says, oh man, thanks. You save me some stitches. I'm going to call you Stitch. And that's where the name Stitch came from. Yeah.
One more question just popped up, and I think it's an important question, especially for German guys, because I see it here very often. I don't know, how is it called, the cold thing you move the blood around. Sometimes I read it, you wrote it somewhere, because you can't just push it around and destroy tissue. I think it's very important to say it one more time, so hopefully the guys watch it and we see that on events here as well.
Yeah, you know, that's a good question, and let me answer it this way, is because it's called an end swell, and I used to see these cutmen, because before you just do it through example, but they would get it and they would try to move that blood. They call it the mouse. But what happens when you get swelling is you get blood vessels that leak underneath the skin and they increase. So as we know the game now, which they didn't know before, you don't try to move it because you move it into tissue that's not damaged, and then it just gets bigger. But what I did is I created I call it the KO swell that we have now through Bad Boy, and it's curved, because I always thought the end swells are flat, so it never made sense. So I created one that's contoured for the cheek and the eyebrows, and it's flat on the other side in case you need it. But cold, direct pressure, and you close up the blood vessels. That's really what you do when you use an end swell or KO swell.
Thank you very much. So guys, watch out. The last question, where can we get your stuff for people that are watching right now and thinking, Stitch got all the stuff, so where can I get it?
Man, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. I'm going to tell you right now. You know, I have my own line of tape, Stitch Premium, and I just teamed up with Bad Boy, and I got my samples today. And matter of fact, during the International Cutman Association, we used the Stitch Premium tape, and it's tremendous, tremendous tape. So through Bad Boy, in about 6 weeks, we just now have all the samples and the products coming in. But go to badboy.com, and in about 6 weeks, and you'll be able to get the tape, you'll be able to get the KO swell, you'll be able to get the wrist wrap, and then I have a new hemostatic gauze pad called Quick Aid that's 100% natural that we use in the UFC, and all you do is put it on the cut, and it dehydrates the blood, and like I say, and you know, Bad Boys saw my value, and they're my mouthpiece to come out, and you're my mouthpiece to educate these guys that there is products available now that you guys could use to make that fighter safer.
Thanks so much. Hopefully we could inspire some more up-and-coming cutmen. So thanks for watching, and see you soon.